Guys, I'm excited because we finally have a new car. Let me explain what I mean there, right? Because we see a lot of, in inverted commas, new cars on the channel. But what automakers do nowadays is they build one electric motor, they build one battery, they package them into what is called a platform, right? And on top of that, they build a dozen or so vehicles living on that platform. But this lives on the all-new and is the first model released of the STLA platform, which means my test drive today will prove or not whether there's been improvement from that outgoing platform designed originally by the PSA group, right? And I'm going to be telling you the difference because I know that platform pretty well. I've been driving the little baby brother of this car, the e-3008, now for 3.5 years, and I've driven practically every vehicle on that platform. So I'm excited to finally get to try what the latest and greatest from Peugeot here has to offer. All right, Peugeot e-3008. So this lives in the compact SUV segment, one of the most crowded and popular segments we've seen in recent years for electric vehicles. There is a lot of choice here, so you have to bring your A game. And Peugeot, through the Stellantis group here, are trying to do that with this all new electric platform. So what do we have here? We have a 73 kilowatt hour usable battery pack, and that is the smaller of the two choices. A 73 kilowatt hour battery pack is the smallest to choose from. This is absolutely massive, right? This would have simply not been possible 10 years ago. You would have not paid this amount of money for that size battery pack. It just goes to show how much prices have come down this past decade. Now, ride quality. So electric vehicles are very heavy, right? They carry around a battery pack which is probably somewhere in the region of 500 to 600 kilograms in this size of a vehicle. So the suspension is a particularly important thing for the ride quality. And as I said, I've tried many of these cars here on the Malta streets, and let's be honest, there is a pothole or two which you will run into. And let me tell you, this and the suspension in the e-3008 definitely up there with the best. I just got a taste of it right there. Extremely smooth. I wouldn't say it's the best I've tried, but it's definitely up there. Quality of the driving experience. Oh, the steering wheel, extremely light, and known now for Peugeot's a very small steering wheel, which you may be a bit shocked with at first, but let me tell you, you will get used to it very fast. And from my experience, my 3.5 years using a steering wheel of this size, right, it's actually very comfortable and makes the car very easy to maneuver, particularly in our very small town roads here in Malta. All right, so what range can you expect out of this full electric vehicle? So claimed WLTP range on the smaller battery size, right? 525 kilometers. That's on a what they call a low energy test cycle. High energy test cycle, so if you're using this car on motorways, etc., or you're using high amount of power, you're looking at somewhere around 415 kilometers. However, EV database claims the true real-world driving range of this vehicle around 380 kilometers. So the question is, well, which one is it? And you'd be right to ask that. And the reality is the range is going to vary extremely depending on your use case and the climate of the place you are in the world. Here in Malta we have hot, but not extreme hot. This is not Dubai hot, right? We have hot temperatures, and we do not have, more importantly, extreme cold temperatures. And that is an important thing, because it means the battery is near the ideal 25 degrees Celsius, and that's when it's going to give the most amount of range. Malta also has the advantage that we have no highways, and thus all our roads will use a low amount of power, which means from anywhere in the world, Malta is probably best suited to get the best range out of this vehicle. Now, so what is the range in Malta? Well, that is exactly what I am testing today, in the same manner I test all the vehicles on the channel, which is I take them for a 40-kilometer round trip around the island. Now, that is double what the average driver drives here in Malta every single day. And I do this with the air conditioning turned on, because remember, those WLTP figures do not include the air conditioning being on. I do it with the air conditioning turned on, because let's be honest, we live in a hot country. And I will be able to tell you and to calculate what is the real world driving range you can expect out of this vehicle. So stay tuned, that is coming up later on in the video. Alright, so there are two trim levels to choose from, quite simple actually. You can get their base level trim, which is called the Allure, or Allure, and then you can get the higher top spec, which is what I am driving today, right? The GT model. Few extra creature comforts you get in the GT model. Let's just mention a few highlights. There's of course a more extensive list you can check out, but you get the Matrix LED headlights, which are pretty cool. You get adaptive cruise control with the ability to work in stop and go traffic, which is not always the case for the cars I test. So yes, this literally means in stop and go traffic the car practically drives itself. What else do you have? Oh, you get a power tailgate, and of course you get the beautiful Alcantara trim level, which honestly is absolutely gorgeous. All right, we have to talk about the regen, because here there's been a major change, and for the first time in an electric Peugeot we have regen paddles behind the steering wheel. And they've done this very, very nicely actually. The pedals are not big and chunky, they're actually quite tiny, and they require very little effort actually to use. Now, minus on the left, plus on the right. Minus to increase the regen, or to increase how much the car slows down when you lift off the accelerator. Plus does the opposite, and there are three sort of levels to choose from, which I've tried out myself. I love the fact that we have so much flexibility now with the regen. It is not a one pedal driving mode, and the car does not come to a complete halt even in the strongest setting. However, what I've noticed different, not only from my e-3008, right, that's on the outgoing platform now, but even compared to the regen coming from other brands, they've done something very interesting here. So I had it in the highest setting, and the regen has this interesting deceleration curve to it, and it's not the linear deceleration which we had in the previous Peugeots, which again I'm very used to, where the car is slowing down at the same rate, right? Here there is this deceleration which sort of increases the more you are coasting, which makes a lot of sense, especially if you're going to be timing yourself at roundabouts to essentially drive the car using just the pedals and not applying the brake at roundabouts. This, I think, is a very nice feature which has been very well designed. Okay, let me tell you about the different driving modes, right? So base model, as I said, of this car, 73 kWh battery, comes paired with a 210 horsepower electric motor, which delivers 345 Newton meters of torque. And you get three driving modes, which of course in the highest mode we're going to activate the full power of the vehicle. They do have the same thing that we've seen on previous Peugeots, where if you cycle through the driving modes with your foot on the accelerator pedal, the car will sort of readjust and accelerate right away without increasing the pressure on the pedal. So you do see this change in the amount of power you have instantly without actually pressing the pedal, something you really have to know about. In terms of acceleration, I mean, the pickup is as good as you want it to be. It is not overly fast and overly aggressive, but there is a smoothness to it, and I think it's about time that we stop making electric cars so ludicrously and dangerously fast, and I think Peugeot would just slight dial down of power. Don't get me wrong, this is not weak, right? Coming from any internal combustion car, you're gonna think this is pretty fast. But I've driven some stupid, crazy fast electric SUVs, right? And it's good to see that this isn't one of them. It's time we start being more sensible with the power we're getting from electric vehicles, and I think they've checked the boxes here. Now, for the sake of my test today, I've been running the car in Eco mode, which is its least power mode, and even there, the power I feel is plentiful, especially for these Malta city streets. We have to talk about the exterior design of this vehicle. So, compact SUV with the coupe-like back definitely gives it a very sportive feel. For me, the impressive part is the front end, which is just looks so aggressive. And what I find interesting now, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? But Peugeot have included so many different things and intricate designs and shapes in that front end, and usually when you go down that route you sort of start digging your own hole when it comes to design, but they've somehow managed to pull it off, because in my opinion I think it looks pretty great. Now, a note about Peugeot's design language in recent years, right? So my e-3008, it's a 3.5-year-old car, mine, but it's a 5-year-old, so it was released for 5 years at this point. They've only just refreshed it, and when they did refresh it, they refreshed it in very minor ways. So they changed a bit the back, they changed a bit the front, but for the most part, the car has been left the same. And that is just a testament to how good the design has stood the test of time. Navigating some roadworks here, which very popular in malls at the moment. Digging up the island to add electrical cables, because we're gonna need them, because the future is electric. Alright, let me tell you now a bit about the interior design and what Peugeot call their iCockpit, which has gone through an evolution from what I'm used to in my e-3008 and the e-3008, right? So they've gone away with the small confined 3D screen and gone for this absolutely huge curved screen, floating display actually, which is very nicely designed. And what I like immediately about this, it is crisp. It is very responsive, which I would say was a bit of a negative for the my Peugeot e-3008 at least. So a lot more responsive than what I am used to. And the colors are vivid and nice. Blacks are deep. So even on a bright sunny day like today, you can see the display very, very well. It's also very well positioned, I feel. And the steering wheel, at least from my point of view here, is never obstructed by the steering wheel, something which may have happened in the previous iCockpit design. So they've done that very nicely. And I also like the fact that it is genuinely one screen. We've seen other cars on the channel with a big screen, but it's actually two screens, and then there's this very ugly line in the middle, right? No, this is legitimately one screen. Now this is all touch, right? But you control it from down here as well. So you've got settings here to jump to your Apple CarPlay, for example, or Android Auto, which is wireless, by the way, which I like a lot. Something that, again, wasn't standard in previous Peugeot models. So it is now wireless, and you can get your climate controls, your applications, etc., etc., controlled from this very nice touchscreen over here. But it's not all screens and touch buttons, right? You actually have some physical buttons. So if you're someone who doesn't like this whole screen thing, then the Peugeot may be right for you, because we do get buttons here for the AC, driving modes, volume, of course, handbrake, changing your driving mode, and plenty of actual physical buttons on the steering wheel as well. Beautiful finish, right? This is the GT trim, to be fair, so it does come with this very nice Alcantara, and we've got this ambient lighting very nicely lighting up the cabin, and I can also actually see it out in the sun, which is not usually the case, right? Usually your ambient lighting just gets lost during the day, but the way the car is designed, which sort of this cove over here, you do still get the ambient lighting during the day, which is a very nice thing indeed. Moving over here, we've got the wireless charger, quite well positioned, and they've made it pretty sizable. So again, negative of previous Peugeot models I've tried is the wireless charger was not big enough, I felt, for today's phones. My phone, which is an iPhone Max model, right, barely fit in the older ones, even though it still charges, but now it fits very, very comfortably. So that's very good to see. There's a compartment over here for storage with 12-volt battery and 2 USB-C charging cables. Cup holders with the sort of lock, so it stops the bottles from shaking about too much. Driving modes I control from right here. That's a very nice switch indeed. Regen is from the paddle shifters, as we said. Very interesting thing. I've never seen this. So what they've done here, it's a bit hard to explain. I hope it's clear in the video. The armrest here is separate from the panel with your window switches, and they have this very awkward angle for it, which when you see it you're like, whoa, what on earth is that, right? But it actually makes so much sense, because you can have your hand very comfortably over here, and then when you need the buttons you just go up here. And so rather than having your arm resting on the buttons, which isn't comfortable, right, you're resting on a nice soft surface, and then the buttons are positioned here. It goes very well with this very modern design, right, which again, I feel, seeing Peugeot's history over the last 5 years, I think this design will age well. Model I'm in does get the sunroof, it does open, and it does have a shade which closes. Visually there's a split in the middle, which is not the nicest, let's be honest, but the fact that we do get a shade we can close electronically, I think that's a pretty big plus for hot and sunny Malta. All in all, I am a big fan of this interior. You get in and you are impressed right away. Alright, so earlier on in this video I told you that the range of the vehicle is 525 kilometers, that is low test energy low WLTP, or 415 kilometers if it's test energy high WLTP, or EV database are claiming 380 kilometers real world driving range. So I've concluded my 40 kilometer test. Efficiency, 15.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Now we know the size of the battery. This is a brand new car. Usable battery size, 73 kilowatt hours. So time to do some range math. 73 division by 15.5 multiply by 100 in Malta, with the air conditioning turned on a day which is 31 degrees and it's just past 9 a.m, which is just not right, you can expect a driving range of 470 kilometers. And again, that is with the air conditioning on, with an average speed which I believe is higher than usual. So with a lower speed you're probably going to get even better efficiency out of this vehicle. 470 kilometers of range, that will probably last the average driver 3 weeks, if not 4 weeks for some people, before needing to recharge here on our 31 kilometer rock in the Mediterranean. There are few brands in the world of any industry which are over 100 years old. Peugeot is 135 years old. They've actually been represented here in Malta for the past 75 years. A car made in the EU primarily for Europeans. This has been the e-3008. Special thanks to Michael Attard Ltd for their support with today's review. You, the viewer, if you've watched this far. As always, like and subscribe is always appreciated. But until next time, I hope I've convinced you that the future is electric.